Welcome to my talk about meeting Marimo, the next generation notebook. But before I dive in, I would like to see some hands of who have used Jupyter Notebooks before. Okay, wow, that's like basically everybody, super cool. Who has struggled maybe sometimes with Jupyter Notebooks? Maybe getting an old notebook, okay, I didn't even have to continue. Everybody, okay. Yeah, because sometimes if you get a notebook from a colleague, maybe it's hard to start running again, but also even if you're running on a notebook yourself, maybe you've changed the variable name or variable value somewhere, and then you're questioned why the output of another cell isn't behaving the way you expected. And I think, yeah, that's just a pity. At the same time, I think over the past few years, I have had the feeling that notebooks have gotten a little bit of a bad reputation in the data science space. Often they are associated with maybe somewhat more junior developers or some junior or less mature data science tech, and I don't think that is right. And I want to, make it, vote a little bit more for notebooks again, because I really love them. I think it's really nice that you can interactively play with your data, play with your models. You don't have to wait for a script to run from start to finish, but you can immediately dive in. But I do agree that a lot of things can be nicer. So when I saw this open source project, Marimo, I was immediately intrigued. So let's talk a little bit more about it. But before I dive in, my name is Sven Arends. I'm a machine learning engineer at Picnic. We are one of the sponsors of EuroPython. We have a booth just right outside the forum hall. We've been sponsoring for the past few years. And Picnic is a place where we combine tech with groceries. So we deliver groceries to customers in the Netherlands, France, and Germany. We are based in Amsterdam. And I think it's also good to mention that we're not affiliated with Marimo. We just think it's a great open source tool. We use it for a couple of our projects already internally. And that's why we would like to share a bit more about it. In my free time, I like to engage with open source. I like to make my own embedded devices. And after a long day of hiking, I love to go to the sauna. Cool. Let's talk about Marimo. So Marimo is a new take on notebooks, mainly around reproducibility, interactivity, and shareability. It's reproducible because the output of cells is deterministic. So it's not the order of the cells that matters, it's the input of the cell that matters. It's also reactive, so if you change, let's say, cell A, and cell B depends on cell A, automatically cell B will be updated as well. It's interactive because of the reactivity as well, but also because it has a lot of built-in UI elements that work right out of the box, so you can quite easily create nice-looking stories or data notebooks for others. And it's not a JSON file, so maybe compared to normal or Jupyter notebooks, which are all JSON and have a lot of metadata, this is just a .py file, and it means it integrates with your version control, with your CI, and what have you. And you can even, of course, call it from your production code as well. But instead of me very dryly listing all these features, I think it would be very cool if I can do some live demoing. So I've started here the Marimo interface. Let's create a new notebook. Hope you can see it. Is it also doable here? Should make it bigger. Better? Great. Cool. So if you used Jupyter Notebooks before, this should look for a lot of things actually very similar. So you have cells, and you have some tooling around it. You have Python cells actually. So what I've created just now is a Python cell. But you also have Markdown cells, SQL cells, and AI cells. On the bottom right, which I find very handy, so here, there's some indicator of the resource usage. But also if you, for instance, have a GPU that you're using, it will also show the GPU usage. So that, for me, that is actually very handy. Let's actually just start with the demo and not go too much about all the UI elements. So on the left-hand side, there's a sidebar with some files. And for this demo, I created a data set about European snacks, which I think is important, and they're all delicious. So immediately you can see I got already a nice preview when I click on it. And I can investigate it, but I won't do that. I will just import it. So I need to do some import pandas, speedy. Create a new cell as well. So similar to Jupyter Notebooks, this is, you can just create new cells. I will do everything by hand. See, there's auto-completion is there. There's also some type hints. When I run it, I get, I've loaded in the data frame. We can explore using the column explorer. Already some basic stuff that I always do when I get a new data set, right, to see what's in there. And for instance, we can have a nice bar chart already for the average prices. And we see that there's one snack that's only in the bucket of €1 to 150, but most snacks are around 250 to 3 euros. That's cool. Let's create a new cell. So let's maybe find the favorite snack, or let's print out the favorite snack per city. So make a city variable. Let's take Amsterdam. Let's use my favorite snack. Cool, stroopwafel. Who of you have tried stroopwafel before? Nice. I hope you liked it. I do. So that's super cool, and I think until now the workflow has been actually super similar to Jupyter Notebooks. But watch what happens now if I, for instance, here put Prague. Automatically, that other cell is updated as well. So for Prague, it's Tridielnik. I hope I don't butcher that too hard, that name. So from now on, we'll just call it chimney cake. But apparently, this is one of the most nicest snacks of Prague. And it's super cool, right? That we can just change one cell, and actually the dependent cells is automatically updated. And what's now also cool is that because it's not the order in which I run the cells, but it's actually their dependencies, I can also reorder the cells in whatever way I like, right? Maybe the story makes more sense if I start with it. So I will just put it on top, put something else here. Then, pasta donata is also a very nice snack, and it gets automatically updated. Super cool, but you can also imagine that when your notebook grows, this can also become super, super messy, right? What is the dependency graph basically behind this? Luckily, there's this explorer on the left-hand side, where you basically can see the cells. I will make it a little bit bigger. Basically, the cells that we have here on the right are also shown as a dependency graph. And I can click on a cell, and it will highlight it here in my Marimo editor. That's already super cool. What about if I would use another variable, or like actually the same variable, but with a different value, right? If I put here Amsterdam. Well, this is not allowed in Marimo, because then the dependency graph can't be resolved anymore. It will give a hint as well where this variable was used before, so you can quite easily fix it. Maybe I hear you thinking, because I had the same thought as well, sometimes when I'm iterating, I don't want to worry too much about my variable naming. I just want to reuse df. Well, not the best practice, but maybe during exploration, I think it's fair to do. Well, if you don't care about using it in more cells, you can easily make it a private variable by just prepending it with an underscore. And that way it actually runs. So then the output of this cell will be Amsterdam, while the other cell will still be, so like the global variable city will still be pasta donata. Super cool. Now, what if we want to share this with maybe some stakeholders that are a little bit less technical and that are maybe a bit afraid when they see a lot of code? So we can actually put it here to app mode, and it will remove everything except for the outputs. Cool. But then how can the user now select which cell belongs, like which snack belongs to which city? So let's also make it so that we can actually have a drop down. Because this is all built in Marimo, which I think is very cool. So quite quickly, we actually can create a drop down button where we can select the value of the city for which we want to know the snack. Now they're not linked yet together, right? If I here for Paris or Berlin, it's not linked yet. So what we need to do here is we have to update the city. City drop down. Okay. Dot value. And now it is actually updated. So for Berlin, it's currywurst, also very nice. And for Stockholm, kaneelbulle. Cool, but how does kaneelbulle look like, right? It would be nice if we can also maybe add an image. So let's do that. Oh, that looks delicious. Cool, so now we have this. How do we share it? Like we can share it again with our stakeholder by putting it to app mode. I use the shortcut command dot. Nice, and now it's like an interactive small app that automatically responds when I change the user input. And we can make it a little bit nicer by centering things, because, yeah. And we actually do that with mo.center. So if we add it there as well. And we add this. Super cool. Now we've made a small little app in a couple of minutes. So I think that's super cool. Now, how do we share it? Well, of course, we need to share the data as well, but the file itself, what was our name that we gave it? Oh, we didn't even save it, so let's make it test. Marimo demo1. I go here, refresh this. Maybe the refresh button stopped working. Is there? Oh, yeah. Ah, perfect. Nice. So actually, it's just a .py file, as what we expected. And what you can see is that Marimo for each cell makes like this, what is it, anonymous function with the decorator and the dependencies of that cell. And it's super cool. Now you can integrate it quite easily into your Git, in your version control, in your CI maybe, or you can even call functions from it if we had to find those. That's super cool, but yeah, I mean, this is not a super useful app per se. So let's also try a little bit more realistic scenario. And for that, I created the following notebook, which is about forecasting the chimney cake. Because, I mean, we're a grocery company in the end, so we would like to forecast what will be our sales in the future. It's one of the main things that we're doing. So let's pretend we're also delivering in Prague, and we want to predict this. On the right-hand side, it actually automatically creates an outline of the whole notebook. Every time I'm creating, for instance, a markdown cell, and I'm sending some headers, it will automatically create this outline, which I think is nice. And of course, I can also write some HTML in there. So what we'll do in this notebook is just load again some data, do some EDA, some exploratory data analysis, check for a little bit of seasonality in there, and then prepare the data to train a baseline model and actually train a little bit of a more advanced model. And finally, we're going to do some inference. Cool. So we can load again the data. And we see that there are 4 columns. So there's a date column, there's a sales per day. There are events apparently happening on certain days. And I've added a Boolean column named there's an event or there wasn't. Good to note, by the way, this is synthetic data. Cool. We again use the column explorer. And for instance, want to see what kind of events happened. And how often they happened, and it's all built in. I don't have to think about how to do it, although I can almost dream it by now. So apparently there are a lot of promotional events happening. EuroPython is happening, and some other important dates are also happening. Cool. Maybe we can look at it later why it's important. Oh yeah, the final thing that I want to show you here as well. So I have to go to the column explorer again. This is all very interactive. If I want to share this later to a business stakeholder, I can actually click this plus button and I will add this chart to the notebook so that they don't need to learn Marimo. And the nice thing here as well is that I'm probably going to use a lot of charts. So I'm preparing it just by an underscore so that I don't have to think about how I should name a chart every time. Okay, cool. Let's investigate a bit of sales data. So I chose here a visualization of the sales data, and I think what we're seeing is, the base of the sales is around this 1,000 and a bit less mark, while there are also some clear outliers or like high peaks in the data. I think what's very cool if we can just select a few things, and you can see due to that reactivity, automatically there's a data table shown here downstairs, where I can see my selection, and I can actually see what's in the data. And apparently all these outliers, they correspond to some sort of event that is happening. So, okay, maybe we can quantify that a little bit as well, right? So Visually, yes, but maybe if we can group by or that kind of stuff. And we're going to use the data frame explorer for that in Marimo, where we can also do things visually. So let's group by, and we're going to select some columns. So if there's an event or not, and we're going to take the median to make sure that we don't overly, no outliers screwing the result. And yes, actually, when there's not an event, or when there is an event, actually the sales triple fold. So apparently, if there's an event, that is super important for us to know, and probably we can leverage that data to make a better ML model. Now we can also, of course, have this as Python code again. So that way we can build this visually, but we'll get Python code in the end, which I think is nice. Yeah, let's also explore a little bit seasonality. If there is seasonality, and if so, what is like the period? So when I'm looking at this, I would say that there's clearly a pattern. There's noise as well, there are outliers, but yes, but there's also clearly a pattern. So let's see if we can make that quantifiable. And for that, I'm using a time series library called darts. Has anybody here used darts before? Oh, a couple of hands, yeah, very nice. Yeah, also a very great open source library, I think. So we're doing a small check here, and yeah, apparently there's a seasonal pattern, so I'm printing it out here in Markdown. So there's a seasonal pattern, and apparently the period length is around 7 days. So after 7 days, that 8th day apparently correlates quite heavily with the first day again. I think what is nice here as well, so I'm using Markdown, but it's actually a Python cell, and I can combine this by using the Markdown function. So you see that I'm injecting here the results. So we're going to do some preparing of the train test split. I won't bore you with that. And we're going to do some naive forecasting. So let's say, what if we just predict that the 8th day is the same as the first day, the second is the same as the 9th day? And let's just see what happens then. So we do that. And, well, it's clearly not detecting the outlier. But apart from that, I mean, it is some sort of baseline. We can maybe work with this. We can quantify it a little bit as well. So in this case, I'm using the MAPE metric, which is quite a common way to evaluate time series. Fine, let's move towards something a little bit more interesting. So like we're going to use LightGBN with some extra covariates to see if we can do better. And I think here is another feature that I would like to highlight of Marimo that I really like, is when I'm changing small cells that potentially are an input to the ML model, I don't want per se on every change that I make to retrain the ML model right from the start, right? It would block the notebook and I wouldn't be able to iterate anymore. So you can guard some cells from running only when you click, for instance, a button. And I did that here. So if I click this button, it will actually train the ML model. It will show a spinner, as you saw, loading spinner. And when it's finished, yeah, it will give a nice output. And this loading spinner I just created by adding a context manager with a loading spinner. So this is the output of our trained ML model. Still not great, but let's also quantify it a little bit, how well or worse it did. Well, apparently it was a little bit better. Not great, not ready for production, but it was a bit better. I plotted them here together. It's not too interesting, I think. I saved it. And then let's now also go to inference. So this notebook is nice and it's great, but what if we want to deploy it, right? We need to run the whole notebook again every time. Do we want that? No, of course not, because we don't want to do all this visualization stuff beforehand. We just want to have the trained model and the input to the model to get an output. And we do that here. And I think what is also very nice is that because we only need the trained model and some input data, and because of the reactivity of and the UI elements of Marimo, we can actually give this to business stakeholders and let them play what would happen if certain patterns would happen in the data. For instance, what happens if like there's an abnormally low week, right? Then, for instance, the model will predict, well, absolute terms, quite low, but probably a bit higher than your abnormal low week, because it was an abnormal low week, so the model has not learned that. And the same thing vice versa. So if I would generate data where the sales are like relatively very high, then the absolute number of the model will probably quite a bit higher. So in this case, 1,000. But compared to that week before, it will actually be a bit lower. So I think it's great that you can give this to your business stakeholders, because then they maybe also better understand like what happens if there's an outlier week, right? And how that can influence sales predictions. Final thing what I wanted to show you here is the reusability. What if I now want to use this model in production? And Marimo has a nice way to show you if a function can be reused outside of Marimo. And there's this label called, you see here, reusable. And it means that if I would call this function outside of Marimo, together with the input parameters, it will actually work. And what I would need, I want to predict the sales again. So let's do that. I created a small script called Marimo inference here, where I'm basically just importing some functions that I just have defined in my notebook. So I'm loading the model, I want to predict the sales, and I create the function to suppress some of the warnings. And basically then all I need is the sales data and event data, which I define here. And I just give it as an input. So let's see if that runs. So I open the built-in terminal, and I do uv run Python Marimo inference.py. Yeah, still a few warnings, but actually it prints out here. So predicted sales for the next day, 798. I think super cool that you immediately can use the functions that you've defined in your notebook in other .py files without having to run a whole notebook. Cool, and let's switch back. There are a lot of more features, I think, that are super cool in Marimo that I haven't even covered. So there are SQL cells and native database integration with, for instance, Postgres, DuckDB, Snowflake, and a lot of other popular databases. There's PyTest integration. I mean, in the end, they're just .py files, so you can run PyTest from your command line and will detect the test underscore functions if you have written those. But you can actually also run them in the notebook cells, and it will also be detected as PyTest cells. There's UV integration, so if you're doing something and you're missing a package, it will warn you and often give actually quite good suggestion which package you should install, which you can do with a click of a button, and it will be added to your PyProject toml. There's rough formatting, so nice that everything looks a little bit the same. You can run a lot of notebooks of Marimo actually in the browser using WASM, and it's very dependent mainly on the type of packages that you're using. So what I've heard is that, for instance, scikit-learn you actually can run in the browser, whereas maybe PyTorch is very, very difficult or not possible. There's AI assistant integration, and also together with, like, you can give it context of what is in your memory. So it won't only see the code that you have written, but you can also use like the data frame that you've loaded in and give that to the AI to help you. So it's really like a nice AI buddy. In the end, you can also export it to Jupyter Notebooks again if you really would want to. There's a VS Code plugin, and I'm personally really looking forward to the real-time collaboration feature. So this was my talk. I want to thank Picnic again for sponsoring it. We are hiring, especially in the ML data and software engineering space. We have a booth right outside, like I mentioned, and I put 2 QR codes, one with our careers page and the other one with the demo code. Thanks a lot.
Thank you once again. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, can you come to the mic then and ask that?
I wonder, can you import Jupyter Notebooks?
Where's the question coming from?
Sorry?
Oh, yeah.
Further right.
Yeah.
I did hear it. That's interesting. I haven't tried it.
Can you import Jupyter Notebooks?
Yeah, I find it an interesting question. I haven't tried it, but maybe after the talk we can try it together.
I wondered the same thing.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, when you create this graphical app that you share with stakeholders, what does it look like to them? What kind of URL do they get? What kind of like login, like SSO or whatever do they have?
Yeah, I do think that Marimo has their own solution for that, which is quite nice. I think for the open source one, they will literally see what I just showed you, and you would have to build something yourself for that.
Thanks for your talk. You highlighted all the benefits or the great things about Marimo. Do you see any points where it's still lacking in comparison to Jupyter Notebooks, or where you think that should be something solved?
So I think I mentioned also, for instance, that you require to make private variables, right? So that's a little bit of a change in workflow that you have to do, and I still sometimes have to get used to that as well. I think also compared maybe to some competitors, you have, for instance, DeepNote as well. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those. They have, for instance, real-time collaboration. That's something that I would really love to see here. Yeah, so that are, I think, mainly the things that I would look forward to.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the great talk. Just one question, but let's suppose that you want to deliver a Python tutorial to somebody. How do you? I mean, you showed everything that was running on your machine, but there is any kind of service? What's a way of like hosting this like platform, or not platform, this alternative to Jupyter to let anybody? Yeah, you said in a browser, but
yeah,
maybe...
so indeed. So one way I think the easiest is to do it in the browser using Wasm. Yeah, the other way to deploy it, I think at the moment it still requires yourself indeed to spin up something to maybe protect it that it's only accessible to your coworkers, etc. Yeah.
Okay, so Kubernetes or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can use Kubernetes, but maybe also a normal server, like
Thanks.
Great.
A great talk. In Jupyter Notebook, you can tag cells. They have this at the right-hand side. You have this one, so you can put tags in the JSON. Is there something equivalent? So, because I usually post-process the JSON with something, and I want to mark cells that have certain properties through the GUI. Can I do this?
Ooh, and not that I'm aware, but that would be a nice feature, I think. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, hi. So you showed that the cells are stored in Python files. Is there also an option to store the current state, the current results, somewhere on?
So I think what you can do, you can, for instance, export it to HTML as more as a static thing. Yeah, that's I think the approach that I know of that can happen. Yeah.
Okay, and then another question, if I may. You say it's Marimo, or is it Marimo?
In the end, you would have to ask the people that created it. I thought it was Marimo.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for your talk. For research purposes, we tend to play a lot with kernels so that we can provide different environments for our users. Is that an option in Marimo as well? I didn't see.
That is a good question. Like you mean basically switching kind of the virtual environment maybe per notebook? Yeah, I'm not sure. I think what I would do is maybe make new folders and then put a PyProject tool per folder. That could work.
Hello. So I have many questions, but I will ask one. Can you use magic commands or some alternative in Marimo notebooks? Because that's something very important to people who are using Jupyter Notebooks for prototyping.
You mean like shortcuts or?
No, magic commands are basically like percentage time it or something like that. And there is quite a bunch of them in Jupyter.
Oh, I'm not sure if I understand.
Well, if you want to benchmark some function,
yeah.
So you can in Jupyter you can mark a cell with percentage time it above, and then you'll have it like benchmarked.
Interesting. So what I do know is that if a cell runs quite long, it will automatically start showing the time it takes. I think it's a couple of seconds. So if things run for more than a couple of seconds, it will show you. I'm not sure if it like fully integrates with time.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Can I stop later?
Of course. Yeah.
And also, one more thing. Trdelník. There's big controversy about it in Czech. It's not Czech thing.
Oh. Oh, that's very important. Thanks.
All right. Thank you all for the questions. And once again.